In West Virginia, a federal court has started hearing arguments against leading drug distributors over their role in the US opioid epidemic. The state is considered to be ground zero for the health crisis, which has killed more than 450,000 people over the last decade. Local governments say companies flooded their communities with powerful painkillers and fueled deadly addictions to other narcotics. Paolo Montecillo has more.
It's a deadly health crisis that predates COVID-19. America's opioid epidemic has killed nearly 500,000 people. It's been deadliest in West Virginia, where overdoses killed 52 people for every 100,000 in 2019, the highest rate in the country.
We are in the midst of a downward spiral. We're failing miserably.
Affected communities are now seeking accountability. The U.S.'s first federal trial over opioids is underway in the state. Officials in Cable County are seeking up to $1 billion from 3 of America's top drug sellers. Government data show 3 distributors, McKesson, AmerisourceBergen, and Cardinal Health, sold more than 81 million prescription painkillers in the county from 2006 to 2014. That's close to 100 pills per person per year.
I would say 90% of what we do is drug-related. No matter what we do, just there's more and more and more opiates getting flooded into our region.
A $26 billion nationwide settlement offer by the 3 firms, together with drug maker Johnson & Johnson, has not deterred Cable County prosecutors, who are determined to go to trial. Major opioid manufacturer Purdue Pharma was driven to bankruptcy by similar lawsuits in 2019. It's now proposing a restructuring plan that includes $10 billion for thousands of injury claims. But health experts say it's not nearly enough.
Since 2001, where we basically started focusing on opioids as a way to deal with pain in hospitals and healthcare facilities and healthcare systems, the cost of the opioid epidemic has amounted to about $1 trillion. So $10 billion is not a great amount relative to the $1 trillion.
A favorable ruling in West Virginia will set an important precedent. There are currently 3,300 pending lawsuits against America's opioid manufacturers, distributors, and pharmacies. And their plaintiffs will be watching the result closely. Paolo Montecillo, TRT World.
Let's get more on this now with Robert Kanter. He's an international addiction recovery advocate and he joins us now from New York. Welcome to the program, Robert. Now, before we look specifically into this West Virginia case, can you explain to us why this issue is very personal to you?
Absolutely. Thank you, first of all, for having me on your program. It's an honor and privilege. I am someone that is in recovery from substance use disorder. I've been sober for many years. I did not get that phone call. My daughter is also in recovery, and fortunately, as my only child, I did not get that phone call that she lost her life, but so many families have. There's very dangerous fentanyl on the streets, which is very, very potent. And we say that, there's an epidemic within a pandemic. So the numbers for the CDC just shot up to 90,000 fatal overdoses in the past year. And really, it is a public health emergency.
It sure is, and as we heard in Paolo's package, the 3 biggest US drug distributors are now on trial. They're being accused of illegally flooding West Virginia with literally hundreds of millions of these addictive opioid pills, and that's resulted in the highest rate of overdose in the United States. Do you believe that these drug distributors are culpable? How responsible should they be for creating the crisis that we're seeing in West Virginia?
That's a great question. See, this is the problem when you're trying to assess monetary damages and, more than anything else, culpability. Who is responsible for this epidemic? Is it the drug distributors? They say, no, we're not responsible for the opioid epidemic. We don't write the prescriptions, the doctors do. The doctors say, no, we're not culpable. We have pain management accreditation organizations that are breathing down our back. The drug manufacturers say, no, we're regulated like the Purdue Pharma, so we're not culpable. The pharmacies say we dispense the medications as per the doctors. Legislators in Washington until recently say the Democrats don't want to pass legislation, the Republicans don't want to pass legislation. But my vote for the one entity that caused this epidemic is the Food and Drug Administration. They are the gatekeepers. They are responsible for protecting the public health. With the FDA, with the DEA, tremendous amount of corruption that occurred many years ago. And many of the commissioners, when they leave the FDA, where do they go? They go to Big Pharma. McKesson, one of the three, is one of the largest corporations in the world. Their revenue parallels ExxonMobil. And there have been, this is not McKesson's first time for the rodeo. There have been many attempts to hold them culpable. But until you put these executives in jail, it's all about money. So, why is this a precedent? It's assessing monetary damages. Like you just said in your report, over 3,000 pending lawsuits around the country. But who is culpable? And that's a key part of the beginning of this trial, which just started this morning.
Now, the lawsuit goes on to claim that these three drug distributors put profit before lives by essentially playing along with this so-called pill mill, as you briefly described there, this idea that doctors and pharmacists are working hand in hand to really over-prescribe opioids to anyone who's willing to pay for them. Where do the drug distributors actually fit in this cycle, this so-called pill mill?
Well, first of all, what's interesting is that the basis of the code that Cable County and City of Huntington, both, like you said, have been devastated, is a public nuisance code, which means that something similar in your town or village where someone's putting out their trash or polluting the water, no matter what, it's harm to the public health. McKesson says, this does not apply to us. This is the opioid epidemic. They have an obligation, a fiduciary responsibility, and a health responsibility to monitor and red flag the amount of pills that are going into a specific location. Not to mention they targeted through their market research the most marginalized, vulnerable communities in this country. 100 million opioid pills were dumped into West Virginia in the past 10 years in Cable County, 100 million pills were dumped. They have a population of 90,000 residents, and they are decimated. Like you said in your report, it is the epicenter of the opioid epidemic in the United States.
Okay, Robert Kanter, we will have to leave it there, but we will be keeping a close eye on what happens in West Virginia. Thank you so much again for joining us on the program.